everybody. This is Paul Herman, the Prince of Motivation and host of Zaka Presents My Journey. We're creating this vulnerable and positive platform where you can get inspired and motivated from different leaders from our community. Today, our guest is Victoria Tollossa, who is the CEO of Illume. Victoria, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and to talk to you, Paul.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Well, thank you for taking the time. I know we're going to be talking a little bit about the industry, music industry, being a writer. We're going to be talking about where you are right now with your company. But before we give the listeners all those gems, let's just start off right off the top. Give us a little bit more of your cultural background and where you grew up.
Absolutely. So I was born in Ukraine. My mom is Ukrainian and my dad is from Ethiopia. Back in the 80s, a lot of, I don't know what, I don't have the exact kind of like political background, but a lot of people from Africa and Cuba would come to Ukraine to study, students. And so that's how my parents met in Ukraine. And then I grew up there from, well, obviously from when I was born to about 10 years old. And then we moved to America with my mom. So my dad was already here, and it took about 10 years to kind of join the family together. And then we ended up here in DC and Maryland.
Mm-hmm. So you directly to Maryland.
Yeah. And then we moved to DC, and then we moved back to Maryland. But yes.
Got a lot going on over there.
There was a lot of moving around when we came here.
Okay. Was there a particular reason for that?
Yeah, there was kind of a few things happening. We about, I think, 10 months in, we came January 22nd, and I guess that November on Thanksgiving night, actually, we ended up homeless. And so, we moved to Maryland. When we ended up homeless, we moved to a church in DC. And so from there, we moved to a shelter in DC. From that shelter, we moved to like transitional housing in DC. And then from there, we moved to another like location in DC. And then after that, my mom got married, and we were able to move to Maryland, and they bought a house. So it kind of changed after that a lot.
Well, thank you for sharing that story with us. Do you have any siblings? Because you said we.
Yeah, no, we as in, so I do have siblings, and which is a funny story. But well, maybe it's not funny, but interesting.
Okay. Hey, look, I'm laughing already, girl. You good?
I got the wrong word here. But sorry. Oh, siblings. Yes, that's right. So I have one brother on my mom's side, who I actually grew up around. And then on my dad's side, I have a brother and a sister about whom I learned like way, like I think maybe at 23 years old. So at around 10, wow, I'm like really just laying it all out here. Okay. At around 10 years old, at 10, my parents separated. And then I didn't see my dad for a while, probably, like I said, until I was like 23 years old. And I was like, this was right after college, I guess. And I'm just kind of sitting there. I was like, all right, I'm trying to like heal and do all of this stuff. I was like, I'm going to find my dad. And so I literally found him on the internet. There were 2 addresses that I found for him, for his name. And I went to the first one, and it just kind of happened to be him. Knocked on the door. It was something. And then that's how I found out that I also have another brother and sister, which was awesome.
That must have been like a shocking moment for you right there.
It was. Oh my God. And then because I was still 23, and then I would come here. I didn't really come I lived in New York, and I would come to Maryland, so I didn't really have a car out here. So like it was me, my mom, my stepdad, my little brother, like we all just kind of like rolled up on them. And the next thing we're like sitting inside their house, and everybody's talking and like catching up after whatever it was, like 13 years. It was like it was out of a movie. I'm not even like, you can't even make that up. It was something.
Well, I'm glad it was a great experience. I mean, 13 years is a long time. I mean, let alone just a year, not being able to be connected to your family members. And I know that's some of our previous guests have talked about that, being able to go back home, for example, and be one with their family members, like being with their grandparents. They left wherever they were and they came to the States, and then all of a sudden they're here for, 20, 30 years. And they're like, I haven't even attempted to go back, right? For several different reasons. But then they finally get an opportunity to go back, and just that feeling of just being like, I feel like I never left, right? And
Yeah.
having those conversations and connecting it with community and stuff. That's beautiful, beautiful story to hear. There's another story that I want to know about. I'm saying his name. I know Victoria is a name right now, but I know there's a first name before the Victoria. So talk to us about that.
Yes. So the name that my parents gave me is Jixie 2, which, oh gosh, I hope nobody starts questioning this, but from what I was told, let's just put it that way.
Okay, okay.
And
Disclaimer.
yes, we'll put in a disclaimer exactly out there. From what I was told, it means someone who is constantly either growing and kind of climbing to victory, something like that.
Mm.
So that's when, when I first came to America, there was a lot of kind of bullying going on, and that song Getting Jiggy With It came out. And so I started getting all sorts of little nicknames here and there. And so I was like, you know what?
Will Smith
Jixie
gonna mess you up.
2. Yes, it's true. I was like, I'm going to call myself Victoria because it technically means the same thing. And it's just a lot easier to pronounce. And hopefully I can kind of, escape some of those nicknames. I mean, it
Mm.
was Jiggy, it was Jigga, I mean, it went on and on and on. I was like,
But I mean, those are still cool nicknames. Those are still. But I get you. I get you. I get you. Those someone calling me Jiggy. I mean, that would have been, what's up, Jiggy? I would have been like, okay, how you doing? You already had a cool nickname based off of your name. Some people's nicknames is just, what's up, cornbread? You be like, what cornbread?
God,
Corn.
right? Okay, yeah, yeah.
Get a random cornbread. I'll be Jiggy for a day. You you know.
I mean, in that sense, yes, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Shout out to that. So we were talking about your childhood right there. Obviously, that was a moment where it might have not been like a cool moment, but just kind of giving you like one of your best memories as a child.
Hmm. My best memories as a child. Well, growing up in Ukraine, some of my best memories come from being at my grandmother's house. So my grandma lived in a village. So there was the village, and then there was kind of the main city. So my mom and I lived in the city, and then summers, winters, I would always be at my grandmother's house. And my mom's sisters, cousins, everybody's, husbands and whatever, would come to her house, and we would spend our summers there and our winters and all sorts of other holidays
Mm-hmm.
there. And I just remember I remember cooking together. I remember playing with my cousins, going fishing. I mean, it just it goes on and on, tending to the cows.
Okay,
uh,
you dropping it. You letting us know. You letting us know.
I mean, it was farm life. So, but it just felt looking back, it just felt like one great big adventure, especially when you're a little kid. It was a lot of
Mhm.
fun. So I would say those are my best memories growing up.
Okay. Now, being biracial, right?
Mhm.
I know that comes with a lot of benefits at times, and it comes with a lot of hardships at times. Could we talk a little bit more about the hardships about growing up being biracial? What were some of the challenges you faced that you really had to question, like why? Like why is this even happening?
Yeah, I mean, so in Ukraine, kind of let me kind of set the scene. In Ukraine, there were literally there was no one Black. Just maybe people kind of like my dad, the students who would come from different African countries in Cuba, right, to study. But those were you could probably those probably under 100. I don't know. I'm just making numbers up, but the point is there were very, very few people of color in Ukraine. And on top of that, they were all men, right? The ones that were there, they were all men. So there were no basically females that were of color. So kind of with that in mind, growing up there, it really just, I always felt kind of stared at because people have never seen, for the most part, have never seen anyone of color. And so and some of it was just like curiosity. And then there were other people who were just like, pardon my language, there were a-holes, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was the full spectrum of
Yeah,
interest.
no.
So I just remember like really always just kind of standing out growing up in Ukraine, and knowing that I was different and kind of being able, like no one really cared or saw the fact that I was like really, it was just like, I mean, even here, same thing happens, here, but growing up, um, I was Black, and I was the first probably Black person that anyone has, that people have seen
Mm.
at that time. Things
At
have,
that time, yeah.
because this was in the 80s, right? 80s, and then early 90s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
that
yeah.
is especially growing up, kids are always trying to find like similarities. Like
Hmm.
what cereal you eat, or what what candy do you like? But when you see someone that has the same type of hair like you or looks like you at a young age, as adults we're like, I'm fine by myself. I'm good. Let me just stay in my lane, right? But kids
Hmm.
want to be in all different lanes, right? So just being in an environment like that where you're probably the only a few, right? It's not like all of y'all are clustered in the same area, like on the same street, right? Everyone's spread out. So it's like that moment where you're like, you look around, you're like, dude, I don't look like anybody, right? I could only
Hmm.
imagine at a certain point in time in your age, it did come to that realization. You're like, at first as a kid, you don't really see it, right?
Yeah.
It's like as little, you're just playing, you're having fun, but then you're like, wait, hold up, you don't really have the same issues with me, like me, or you don't comb your hair the same way. You
Hmm.
don't wear certain types of products, and things like that. So some of the guests have talked about that in previous episodes and stuff. So
I
yeah, I
mean,
can.
the part of it is like, right, like there were a lot of kind of differences, right? But and then the other part of it, like that's me coming to that realization. And then the other side of it is like people, telling me like to go back to the jungle. Like
Oh,
there's
wow,
right.
wow.
That's not like a realization. That's just like straight up like in your face, like,
Mm,
you
mm.
know, you
But
are not like us.
keep in mind, everybody wants to take a safari trip now.
Yeah. Yes.
So those people that were talking out there sideways, now they're the same ones Googling safaris, trying to find their way over to the jungle. Mm,
Yeah,
come
yes,
on,
that's right.
don't play with us. Don't play with us. Come on. What was like the biggest cultural difference, navigating when you moved to the US? Like coming from the Ukraine, now you're in the
Mhm.
US. Obviously you had a lot of moving along, going along, but what was like that big cultural difference?
I mean, so before I came to America, my vision, right, my idea of America was based on like basically Beverly Hills 90210. That was like the show
Okay, good
everybody
show.
watched. Yeah. And I was like, wow, America's so cool.
Yeah,
Like
that
everyone,
was a good show.
it was.
Dawson's Creek,
Yeah.
90210. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that. Everyone's like, okay, this is what high school's gonna look like.
Yeah, yeah, palm trees. I remember I was waiting for palm trees. I mean, it was all shot in
Not
LA, right?
not in DC, girl.
Not in DC.
You
And
in the wrong side of the country.
and it was January 22nd. Like it was literally like smack in the middle of winter. So I walked outside of the airport and I was like, this doesn't look right. I was like, where are my palm trees?
You got to go to the Caribbean. You got
Yeah.
to go. I mean, it's on the West Coast as well too, right? But if you really want some good palm trees,
Oh yeah, that's where it's. Oh my God, that's why I always love going to those types of places for vacation.
okay,
Yeah,
okay. Well, wow,
that
but I
was
could,
that was a big shock for the 9-year-old me.
and
So,
I can only imagine you, getting over here and you're like, all right, okay, let's go sightseeing. Let's see some palm trees. And you're like, this is the DMV.
Yeah.
This ain't really what I'm expecting.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Uh,
hey, look, now you're at that age in your life where you could actually travel and see those palm trees and and you could actually go take pictures next to them. So hopefully you are doing that now. Yeah.
All
Talk to us now. Let's dive into this industry stuff because
right.
myself as well too, being a part of the industry still currently, it's always good to hear, individuals that are in the industry or part of the industry at times, their stories.
Mhm.
So, did you know you want to be a writer and work in the music industry when you were growing up? Like, what inspired you to do that?
Yeah, so I remember being this had to be like 10, 11, 12, maybe even 13. I don't I don't remember how I got this CD, but I got my hands on the Whitney Houston, The Preacher's Wife soundtrack. Uh,
Good
and
one.
oh my gosh, and I
Good
just
one.
like, started listening to her. I think that was my first introduction to Whitney Houston in general. I was like, wow, it's like this is amazing. And like I just remember listening and like crying. Like I was really like feeling the songs, especially a lot of them were right about like it was about God and uplifting, right? And
Yep.
faith. And especially what I was going through at that time, it was very helpful. It was very helpful, basically. And then her voice was just so beautiful, and the songs were moving, and I was like, I want to do that, like the way that this makes me feel. I was like, I want to be able to do that for others. And there are many ways to do that, right? But at that time, her voice was just very inspirational to me. I was like, I want to be the next Whitney Houston. And so I started singing, and I was not very good. Let's just
Sounds like you have a nice voice. It sounds like you have a nice voice to sing. I mean, hey, look, you maybe could hit a couple of notes.
yeah,
She
that
said,
ain't happening.
no.
No, no,
Cut
I
that
mean,
down.
like, before I got on a call, like, my voice was hoarse because I haven't, like, really talked so much, just yet. But anyways, I, um, I was like, this is what I want to do. I didn't really sound like her, but I worked my butt off. Like, I think that's like a big theme in my life, kind of looking back, is things were never truly just kind of like given to me easily. Um,
Hmm.
I always had to go through a whole bunch of, and I mean, that's everyone actually, but lots of ups and downs and lots of like busting my ass to make things happen. Um, and so that's what I did. I was taking lessons. I was literally just singing for hours. God help my mom. But I was
Wow.
determined that I was going to do the same thing. And then I started listening to Alanis Morissette, and those I would say were like the two kind of like definitive um influences in my kind of earlier, music career. I mean,
Yep. Yep.
can even call it a career at that age. But like in my earlier music life, those were the two big influences, which is something that when I moved from Maryland to New York to go to college, that's kind of you would hear a lot of those types of influences, as well as Britney Spears. Britney was out, and I am
Hmm.
not ashamed to say it.
Hmm. I think anyone in that era had to respect Britney. Britney was a performer. She was an entertainer, and her productions were
Hmm.
like very vibrant. You know what I'm saying? Just I'm a slave. The fit, the
Hmm.
whole. She always put on a show. It was always a performance. It was always a production with her, um, and she had a voice as well too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I thought
good.
she had a unique voice. I mean, it was limited, but it was unique. And
Yeah,
in the industry, you don't really need to know how to sing that well, anyways.
that is
It
correct. That's
helps, but it's not a requirement. You
yeah.
just
This auto
it's
tunes that
brand.
whoever made auto tunes is making a lot of money now. Let's just say that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But we're not going to talk about the industry that
No,
way. We we not that's a whole nother conversation about the industry, right? But for
Yeah.
the listeners, for the in the audience, you know, that want to understand a little bit more about the music industry and what a writer does, could you express that?
Yeah. Well, so at first I was writing for myself. And so I was doing the whole recording artist thing. And I did that for, I mean, even when I was a writer, I was still trying to pursue um being a recording artist. But I would write for myself at first. And you asked what the process was like, or
Yeah, like so some people don't even know what a writer
oh,
does, you
oh,
know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you are, well, I think it could be a few different things, but for me, I wrote lyrics and I wrote melodies, and I would partner with different producers on the song. So a lot of the times I would get tracks from folks, and then I would write to them, and I would do all the arrangements, and I pretty much referenced all of the vocals. It was rare that I didn't reference the vocals. So I got really good at this is a I would say a little bit later in my music career. But I got really good at kind of emulating different singers because they all like people have no imagination. They want the track. Like if you're submitting a track to Britney, like if you can make it sound like her, then
Mhm.
people can kind of visualize it better. So I got really
Yep,
good
yep.
at emulating different styles of singing and different types of voices.
Different ranges. Okay, so you might have to do that on this episode.
No. You know, I've put out I've had a couple of LinkedIn posts where I was like, I could do the best Britney impersonation, and everyone's like, we gotta hear it, we gotta hear it. No.
You just be shutting it down before we even get in the house. Come on. If you got
Silly.
this hidden gem, this hidden talent that people have not even experienced, you might have to just, yeah, you could go on the road, do a show like that. The Britney
That's
impersonator.
true. Yeah, yeah,
Hey, look, there's a job for everybody out there, you know.
yeah.
So I know you're already booked and blessed being an entrepreneur. We're gonna talk about that, but you know, there's a lot of things that could come through that, you know. So being a writer,
Yeah.
you're writing, you're doing your thing, you're having a lot of success with it. But what was like the story that happened that kind of made you switch from being in the music industry to then pursuing the entrepreneur life?
Yeah, well, okay. Let's kind of go back a little bit and clarify the having a lot of success part. So let's just
Sis,
break that down a little bit. Um,
you were doing it. That's success.
I
That's
was
first and
doing, yeah,
foremost.
I was definitely in it to win it. I was, like every day, like I literally approached it like a lot of people approach their 9 to 5s. I would wake up, I would either be writing, I would be going to dance rehearsals, I would be planning a show, I would be trying to book a show,
Hmm.
book a
Hmm.
studio, like network with producer, like come nighttime, I was out and about networking and trying to build relationships. So I
Yeah,
was,
you were about that life. That's success right there. You were doing a lot. Yeah.
I was, yeah. Um, but the reason why I switched from being a recording artist to then more so focusing on my writing was because I got old. I think I was like 26. They're like, oh, you're too old.
Girl, you know they be lying on their ages in the industry, so you good.
I know, but I think it just kind of like it got harder and harder to maybe to sell that a little bit.
Okay.
And I by then I really I don't want to say perfected my writing, but I've gotten a lot more writing kind of done under my belt, a lot more practice, and so that's when I don't want to say 100% focused on writing. I was still hanging on to, you know, maybe I could still be a recording artist. It was like if I get a placement on like Britney, then that opens up doors for me to do like, whatever I wanted to do. So like in many ways, I still kind of I held on to that idea that it could still potentially happen. But writing became kind of the main thing. And then after that, I think about this all the time, how I stopped. I think at the end of the day, I got burnt out. because I've
Mm,
been, I was doing this since 15 years old. At that point, I was maybe like 28-ish.
yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot of time.
And yeah, I got burnt out, I think, because I would start going to sessions, to writing sessions, and it felt like work. And that was a really, really weird feeling for me. Like it has music, writing, singing, nothing, dancing, anything, like that has to do with that has never, ever, ever up until that point felt like work. And when it started to feel that way, I was like, this is interesting. Like, what is going on? I was, like, I don't even want to go to these sessions anymore. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And then at that time, it kind of like all was happening at once. At the same time, I met, my future business partner. And so we were starting to talk some ideas for an experiential marketing agency. He had a lot of contacts, I had a lot of contacts, and we were thinking, okay, maybe we could do this. So it was like I was phasing out, kind of felt burnt out, like I don't even want to do this. This is like actual, like this feels like I I don't want to say it feels like work, because that sounds kind of negative, because I do enjoy working, but like I think I lost my passion and I just got burnt out. Anyways, all of
Yeah,
that was happening
I
at
get
the
you.
same time. And so I slowly, over the next, I would say, year or so, made that transition out of the industry, and I started working on the experiential marketing agency.
Mm-hmm. It is even myself being in the industry, I think that's very one of the hardest things we have to do. Like you have to really, really be good at juggling a whole lot. Like you said, you got to be singing, writing, dancing, even acting at the same time. And it's like it's not even like a feel that dance is totally different from writing.
Mhm.
Writing is totally. It's not like you're in a corporate office and you're like, okay, I work in the accounting department, an example, but I also do a little bit of this, and it's like somewhat close enough. You're still dealing
Mhm.
with numbers. Writing, singing, performing, dancing, acting, like all these things. And then every time you kind of not say mastered something, they management or somebody would throw it back to him like, look, you know what? Now you got to start make it sounds like Christina now. You got to,
Mhm.
and it's like I just mastered the Britney thing. Like, what's going on? And nothing is ever enough in the industry. It's always
Yeah.
like that was good, but you could do better. That was it. And in life, we should always want better, but after a while you start to say that like where's the time where someone's going to say it's good, and we start looking for like validation. We
Mhm.
go from just being like I'm so excited to like is it good, is it good, is it good, did you like it, did you like it, versus like I just want to create good music. And I feel like the industry could really like hurt a lot of individuals if they don't have that thick skin. So for you to
Mhm.
do it for that long, I know you definitely got some thick skin, right? um
Yeah, I mean, I would say, had to do a lot of healing from the music industry because of exactly what you were just talking about now. There are so many no's, one, and two, it's like almost like everything you did depended on somebody else kind of saying yes and opening the door for you. It never felt like I was truly kind of in control of my path, right? I think nowadays it's a little different because you do have social media, and if you want to go the independent artist route, like the platforms are there for you to
yeah,
kind of do your own thing. But I mean, this was like 2007, 2000, like, I mean,
yeah.
sure, there was social media, but it wasn't, it just, I don't know, maybe I didn't have the insight or the vision.
If there was social media back then, and which it was, right? It just wasn't as dynamic as it
Mhm.
is today. Like you could do reels, you could, uh, they're connected to your instant to software to edit videos. If you were recording from a BlackBerry, you know,
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
wasn't going down. It was
Yeah.
not going down, right? Nowadays, especially with the capabilities of phones and AI, there's a lot of great things. That's why I said to myself, if I go back on tour, I'll be so excited to go back on tour this time because I want to know what it feels like being in this era and being
Mm.
able to experience it versus being on tour when it was like living out of a BlackBerry. There was no direct deposits at the time. It's just like you couldn't even take a screenshot of the check. You had to wait until you came home to deposit it. So there's a lot of those things, but I can only imagine. So transitioning from the music industry into being an entrepreneur, and now talk to us about Illume, right? I want to get into that, right?
Um,
Starting this company, how did you evolve it?
Yes. So, well, actually, before even we get to Illume, so the marketing agency that I started after I kind of stopped doing the whole music thing.
Yep.
I did that for about 3, 4 years. Then I gave everything over, like sold everything to my partner. And then I moved here so this was in LA. Then I moved to Maryland and I started another company. And that one didn't do so well. I probably put in, I don't know, maybe like 3 years into it. Um, and then at that point, I was like, ugh, I was like, I didn't say I give up, but I think it felt that way. But life was like, at that point, I had a child, I was like, I gotta do something. So it felt like I was giving up, but I went into corporate. Corporate to me just felt like, oh, like I've given up on, like all my dreams basically. But I was like, I have to provide stability for my child. And he was like, what, 4 maybe at that time.
Mhm.
So I also went back to business school. Well, not back, but I went back to school. And I started business school. So I was doing that. I got a corporate job. Also, everything has been so far like in marketing, right?
Yep.
So the corporate job was a marketing job. I was working for a law firm. Then from that law firm, I went to another law firm. Um, I don't know how long I was there for, maybe another like 2 years or so. And then I was like, all right, you, you know how they say like you can take like a girl out of what is it, like a village, but can't take the
Yeah,
village.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like
Yep,
that
yep,
saying.
yep.
I was like, you can take me out of entrepreneurship, but you cannot take entrepreneurship out of me. I was just like, this feels so small. Like I was like, I know I did not come on this planet to be working for somebody at a law firm. So I took the plunge and started Illume, which technically first started by me posting on LinkedIn and kind of going all in on that platform. And then I was able to build an audience and eventually, a business from that platform.
Okay. Well, congrats to that. And talk to us a little bit more about Illumina, what you do over there.
Hmm. So Illume, we are a personal branding agency. We work with executives and entrepreneurs, so business leaders, and we help them build their personal brands online and offline.
Hmm.
Online, mostly through platforms like LinkedIn, doing some PR for them. And then offline, it's booking speaking engagements, that sort of thing, podcasting. So anything and everything that they will need basically to get the word out of, on who they are and what they're about and what they stand for, what they're doing.
And what was like one of the biggest transitions, I'm sorry, challenges that you faced, like transitioning from that music industry into the world of entrepreneurship? How'd you even overcome it? I know obviously financing is always a big one, right? When
Mhm.
people say, "Well, I was in corporate America, I was making this amount of money," and then all of a sudden I'm like, the check gets cut in half.
Yeah.
So, or
Mhm.
if even if there is a check, let's get that right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, what was like a challenge you faced?
I mean, I think I had to learn a lot of different things. I had to learn kind of more of like the subject matter type stuff. I knew branding coming out of the music industry. I knew branding like the back of my hand. I almost had like a extra sense for it. Um, but I had to learn like how to do email marketing, how to even like when I moved into the corporate space, like how to even do this corporate sort of speak. Like I had to learn the corporate language, like just a lot of different kind of more tactical things that I had to figure out and learn, which business school was very helpful
Yep.
with coming out of like like a creative industry. But the one thing I would say the music industry prepared for me for is like the sound of no. The sound of no. I was like, you know, I heard that. Sorry,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not gonna keep me back. Like,
Someone, I think another thought leader that came on, he said that the no is the start of a conversation,
yeah. Hmm.
right? So in most situations, people be like, no, okay, thank you, gotta go, bye, let me go find somebody else. But
Hmm.
they mentioned, and I forgot who it was. They were like, yeah, no is the start of a conversation. When I heard that, I was like, you know, what, you're so right, because I always start a conversation after the no. So why so why not? You know, but it's knowing that you have a conversation could lead to the yes, right?
Oh,
Versus the no and you transition out. So yeah, the industry does prepare you for that because there is a lot of no's before you actually get that first yes. And you're
yeah,
lucky if you do get that yes. But
yeah,
creating the opportunities for yourself, you could potentially have all the yeses you want.
yeah. No, that's true.
You
That's
rig the
true.
fight. You rig the fight. You know exactly what your market is. You know how to
Mhm.
sell yourself. You're the best person to sell you. So if you bet on yourself, I mean, you definitely gonna win.
Yeah. And I think that was another thing that I learned in the music industry is how to sell myself, how to create this kind of persona, so to speak, right? And that's kind of that personal branding piece that I took from there and brought into kind of what I do now. And I was
Mm,
back then, I was also working with other artists, helping them develop their um kind of their personas, whether it's through the music, through like their clothes, like their style, like how they do interviews, how they carry themselves, like
mm, mm.
the story that weaves maybe through their album, like all kind of really create. I was at that time, I was kind of like on that same vibe as I would say as Lady Gaga was. Like it was creating a whole, like it was just you had to create a brand for yourself.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was
yeah.
not just
And
about
Gaga was big
it.
for that.
Yeah.
She
And
was
that's
big
how
for
I
that.
thought at that time as well. I'm not going to talk about the concepts because I don't want like anyone looking me up. Let's just say I, I did not dress the same way.
You was getting jiggy with it. That's
Yeah.
what was happening. Victoria, let's be real. You was getting jiggy with it. This is when the jiggy activated right there. I know it activated at a young age, but this is when you was getting jiggy with it, right? So shout out to that.
Yeah. Yes. Amen.
Did did your cultural background, shape your approach to like storytelling and like your approach to like branding in any work that you do?
Well, I think in the work that I do today, being able to being able to identify and see my clients, and like because I've had so many different types of experiences and I've been exposed to so many different types of cultures and all of that, I'm able to understand my clients, I think, on a different level. And because I've been able to kind of perfect and hone my story, and over the years, I'm able to see it in them, and I'm able to help them perfect and kind of clean up their story so that it's cohesive, it's clear, and it resonates. So I think being able to see from a lot of different perspectives, that's one of the ways that I would say it's
Mhm. And
it's
how is it being a woman of color? Being in both industries, being able to work in the music industry, now working in the branding industry. Is there any words I'm sorry, any word of advice you would give to people navigating through similar spaces?
Hmm. That's a really good question. I, a woman of color, but even like a biracial woman, it's, I just remember trying to always kind of fit into different spaces. And, after a while, you try to fit in here and you fit in here, and you're like, you keep on like shrinking yourself and like molding, dysmorphing basically yourself to try to kind of be a little bit more like this. Like I don't know, like Britney's hot,
Yeah,
go like hike up your skirt a little bit, like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
those
yeah.
kind of things. And so like you're morphing yourself into these kind of people And you start to lose a sense of who you are. So, I mean, this is woman of color, biracial woman. I mean, really any person. It's like my big thing now is kind of fighting through that and like telling people you have to just be yourself. It's scary sometimes to be yourself, right? Because we want to fit in
Sure.
because we want that acceptance. But at the end of the day, if you try to do that to, you can really lose a sense of who you are. And I
Yeah.
did for a while. Like the music industry really made me lose a sense of who I was, because I was always like that brave, like go-getter, nobody can tell me no,
Yeah.
like like, even like I just remember at 10 years old, like I was helping my mom like pay bills, calling social work. Like I was that type of kid. Like we need to go here. Let's go. I'll go talk to them. It's not a problem. I was really, really brave. And I was like, let's get some stuff. Let's get stuff done.
I
And then
like that.
the music industry kind of slowly over time, I lost my confidence. And so, and I think a big part of that is being a little more like this, a little more like this, a little less like this, right? And then it took me a while through, I would say, entrepreneurship. It helped me build
Mhm,
the confidence back up. But I was able to, I would say, regain a sense of who I was.
mhm, mhm, mhm. And in 2025, I know obviously people are with the new year. Why is branding, um, personal branding, so important more than ever now?
Yeah, I mean, what is personal branding? Essentially, it's your reputation, right? And so reputation is not necessarily a new concept. It's been around, I don't know, since whatever. I think now in 2025, and really even before this, it because of all the online spaces, right, channels, you're able to build your reputation in other ways, right? It's not just kind of face to face networking events, right? You're able to build a reputation online. And with the people that I work with, right, in kind of like the professional space, because of platforms like LinkedIn, they have allowed those types of folks to build their reputation online as well.
Yep,
And
yep.
it's like, how do you navigate that, right? Like, how do you kind of understand kind of who you are, your philosophies as a leader, as a whatever, as a business leader, let's just say, and how do you clearly communicate that online? And in service of whatever the business or the company that you're building. So in 2025, I would say that's why like everyone needs to think about this.
Especially with all these platforms,
Yeah.
like you could really scale your business in like overnight
Hmm.
by utilizing these platforms the right way. So, um, with like the crowded digital space that we're in right now, since we're talking a little bit more about that, what are some strategies you recommend for entrepreneurs in C suites, looking to be authentic and like kind of make an impact?
I mean, I would say the biggest thing is to lean into your story. Your story is your strategy, basically, right? And that is how you're going to differentiate yourself. I have this telescope analogy that I always use, right? It's like imagine three people looking at the same sky through the same telescope. You have like I don't know, like an astrologer, a child, and maybe like some sort of, I don't know, like a hippie. I don't know. She's kind of coming up with ideas here. A child is going to look at that sky and a child is going to see something magical, maybe, right? Like an astrologer may look at it and see something a little bit more like, I don't know, like look at it from like a scientific standpoint. And like a hippie may look at it more of like from a philosophical standpoint, right? So your perspective, your experiences, um, have led you to look at the same topics as all of the other people are kind of are looking at, but from a different kind of from a different place.
Hmm.
And that place is your story. Those are your experiences. So you need to lean into that, because that's what's going to help you differentiate yourself from, like the thousands of other people who are trying to do the same thing. But I think
Hmm.
sharing your story can be really scary sometimes and tricky,
Yeah,
especially like
yeah.
in those like more like professional spaces, like people are not used
And
to necessarily doing that. Yeah.
I think it also something that you're afraid to tell a story because you don't know what people are gonna think about you. Because this is your life now,
Yeah,
right?
that's
You're
true.
like, I was born in the Ukraine. I have an Ethiopian father. I have a brother. I just met them at like you start sharing that story, people start looking at you like, wait, hold up, this ain't the Victoria that I know, right? And you're like, wait, hold on, no, I'm the same person. It's a part of my journey. So people get a little worried, and I know that being first generation or second generation immigrant, I know like sometimes some of the listeners, the thought leaders that were on, they were like, look, I was ashamed at first to tell my story. I was
Mhm.
afraid to say I was Hispanic. I was afraid to say I was from African descent. I was afraid to say I was Haitian, at one point in time, because they're saying to themselves like the story doesn't sound promising, doesn't sound fulfilling, it doesn't sound welcoming, right?
Mhm.
And because of what's going on in life, the depiction of like their culture or their background on social media or on different platforms. So you just kind of like they lay low. They're like, well, I'm not going to say I'm Haitian today. I'm good,
Mhm.
So it is a very hard thing to tell your story. But when you do get accustomed and that story becomes something that you embrace, then that story is felt strongly through your audience. That's
Mhm.
why motivational speakers go out there and express their stories. They could go anywhere in the world. That story is still a story, and they know how to tweak it a little bit to fit every audience. So I'm loving your story, and I'm glad that we were actually able to share this moment as we kind of getting closer to concluding this conversation. But your story is beautiful, very impactful, right? And I'm loving it. And the gems you were dropping,
Mhm.
love that as well too.
All
what
right.
what are like the biggest mindsets or skill sets shifts that you might um that you make when transitioning from working with artists to then serving C-suites, business leaders?
I think artists are a little bit more open to the idea of personal branding. And I think, because they're used to kind
Yeah.
of being in the public eye, quote unquote, right? With executives, they're like, I'm not, an influencer. Like, I'm not a content
That's the
creator.
first line. Do I have to do this?
Yeah, do I have
Do I
to?
have to speak? Do you have to see my face on camera? You be like, girl, you are the owner of the company.
Yes. And I'm like, you influence every single day. That's like literally you go to a meeting and you're influencing people. You have a client call, a prospect call, you are influencing people. And so that let's just, kind of let's get that clear first and foremost.
Yep,
So
yep.
it's a natural, it shouldn't be it's a natural transition, right, from like what you do on a day-to-day basis to maybe now doing some of that, but more on like a public platform or in a public way. But yeah, that's the biggest thing. Artists are like, okay, let's do it kind of
That's
thing.
right. What we doing today?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's that hunger. I mean, but that's just because you're taught to do that within the industry.
mhm,
So it's like that. Now I know you're also a mentor as well too, right? And I want to kind of get leave you with this one last question about being a mentor. I think that's a first and foremost, congratulations on that. I mean, mentoring people, helping people, educating people, influencing people is a very big role. So, like,
mhm.
what is like a meaningful piece of advice you would give to, one of your mentees? And like, why'd you even start into get into mentoring?
I mean, it started because if I can just help people minimize that learning curve a little bit, then, then it feels like that aligns, I think, with my ultimate mission in life, right? Like if I can just help people be brave, right? To not be scared to pursue kind of whatever it is that they're trying to pursue, then I don't know. I feel like I've done my job in life. Um, so to me, mentorship is is tied to kind of to my, I would say, greater purpose in life. And
Mhm.
And of course, like what I'm doing now is also tied to the greater purpose in life because I'm helping people tell their story so they can
Mm,
go out there and like really like do what they do, right? And be able to impact people that the way that they want to impact people. But yeah, it's minimizing the learning curve. If I can help someone, because I've had people help me along the way, and they, from small to kind of to from small to big, right? People have been instrumental in helping me navigate whatever it may have been, life, career. So if I can do that for others,
mhm.
that that warms my heart.
Well, you're definitely warming my heart today, Miss Victoria, right? AKA Miss Jiggy.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, so Victoria, thank you. Thank you so much for just being present on this platform and sharing your stories and just giving us a lot of insight. I know your schedule is very busy, but to take this time to kind of just get to know you a little bit more and let our listeners get to know you a little bit more has been very beneficial to the Zaka family. So thank you again, Victoria.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, and I want to let the listeners know if you want to hear more inspirational stories like Victoria, please check us out on ZakaConnect.com. Follow our social at Zaka Connect and follow our feed Zaka wherever you listen to your podcast.